Tectone and Taigo are wrong about Story Quest. What makes a good Story Quest? And let me tell you this. Who made this video?
Well, this is crazy. So it turns out Tectone actually responded to my last video, which is pretty crazy. So I want to get into me responding to him, but first I want to bring up something that is brought up a ton in his response, and it is one word that I don't think is actually clarified throughout the entire video, and that word is nuance. Tectone often seems flabbergasted that I agree with him on certain points and disagree with him on others, but let's be clear, you can agree and disagree with someone in a debate or an argument. That's like the point of being reasonable, right? Like, let's quickly break down a simple argument, right? You've got two minor conclusions that lead into the major conclusion. Now, I can agree with a minor conclusion without agreeing with the major conclusion. Like, that can still be reasonable, I can still do this without contradicting myself, and I think it's just being fair. There are times throughout this video which I will agree with Tectone, but there are also times that I really don't agree with him, and I spend a hefty good amount of time explaining why I don't. But it seems if I agree with him on certain things but disagree with him on others, he wants me to just disagree with him on everything.
Tectone was wrong, but I agree. Yeah, it is what it is. I don't care. That was fun. Dude, I love when people make videos like that, but I wish it was in a more hostile stance, to be honest.
I don't think that Tectone is wrong about everything, obviously. Like, I watch his content, that's the reason I even saw this video to begin with. I think he can definitely be really reasonable and make great points. And I don't think he makes all awful points in his video, and neither does Taigo. I think both of them have a fair amount of good points that they make and bad points that they make. The point of my previous video was to show the nuance in storytelling, but it appears that the nuance in argumentation was just left at the door. But I also get that this is the internet, so I don't necessarily blame Tectone for thinking that I was coming at this in a wrong way, but let's be clear, I'm not. This is all about the debate, it's all about the discussion, and I find this stuff to be awesome, so I'm really excited that Tectone actually did respond. So again, let's go into this being fair, just like last time, and let's look at his points with a fair and balanced view. Also, you're all still babies. You're babies!
Well, why not just react to his side of the video? Why do you have to react to mine too? Is it because I'm relevant? In which case,
you are relevant, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate
Obviously,
that.
you're
I think
relevant.
I'm relevant
It's
too.
Crazy.
Trust me, guys.
I'm relevant
super
too, though,
relevant.
right?
But unfortunately, the video
Right?
still got no views, which sucks. And from what I've seen of this video,
I'm not just reacting to Taigo, because my video isn't just about Taigo. If you notice, half of my video is about rebutting you. That's half of the entire video. I literally made a little segment for it. Eggy arguments. That's the whole point. So yeah, this video is me talking about Taigo, and it's talking about you. He also, throughout this rebuttal, essentially says that I kind of clickbaited and also was doing this for clout, but doesn't exactly say that, so I'm not going to say that he owns that argument. But he alludes to it several times, so let's actually just rebut that real quick. I mean, out of anyone, I know that Tectone really understands YouTube titles. Some of his YouTube titles and thumbnails are the best in the game, so he totally gets how to actually get people to click your video. Now, my title is that you're wrong about story quests. Do I think that you're wrong about literally everything revolving story quests? No, of course not, right? Like, I could make my title that I agree and disagree with Tectone and Taigo about story quests in a nuanced way, but I ultimately disagree with their conclusions, but that's not like the best title to make. Also, I do want to quickly apologize about the title, specifically to Taigo for it. Not Tectone, fuck that guy. My video isn't the title, and I think it should be looked at for the substance, but the title is a more dramatic, hard-lined version of my more nuanced point in the video. In the past, when I've made more nuanced titles, YouTube absolutely hates them. That's why I have like 27 titles per video. But again, that's not the substance of the video itself. To be fair, Taigo, just as much as Tectone, should acknowledge that titles aren't the actual point of the video. The title of his original video is The Problem with Genshin Story Quests, when the video is just his feelings on the story quest. So his title is also a more hyperbolic version of his point in the actual video. Also, want to make it clear that I do acknowledge that Taigo's original video is just about his feelings, but Tectone does use that video as support for his more objective points, so I needed to also counter Taigo's video and mine. But again, my title was definitely not intended as offense, and Taigo made a response to my video, and it certainly comes off like he just viewed my original video as trauma, so just wanted to clear that up and apologize to him. So I'm sorry, but also the title of this video is probably gonna be something ridiculous. I think that the character quests in Genshin Impact are the true heart of the story. As much as—
I agree. See that? Problem solved.
Hold on, he agrees? Chat, do you see that? He agrees with me. What's the point of his whole video then? If he agrees! He agrees with me! Since I watched the entire story of the game from start to finish to make an almost 4-hour-long video, I felt mildly qualified to talk about it.
First of all, I don't give a shit. You know what makes you qualified to make this video? It's when you wake up and you're playing this game that you fucking hate, so much so that you've lost all your goddamn hair.
Does this count? I think this counts a little bit, right? It counts a tiny bit.
You know why this pisses me off? Is because I'm getting responded to by a guy who's way better than editing it than me.
Stop!
And so I just look like a schmuck compared to him. And now I'm self-conscious. Dude, I need a better editor. Hey man, are you an editor? Message me on Twitter. Thanks, man.
And quickly before the response, we need to discuss this question. Why do story quests exist?
To tell a story. Why did we have to address that? I really feel like we didn't have to address that.
Well, see, I address why they exist so that we can focus on the story itself, right? Like the point of the story, the true meat of the story, rather than the things like the cinematography, which you guys do talk about in your previous video a lot. You guys mentioned the cinematography a bunch and the animations and how stale that it looks, the conversations, which again, like I say in the video and like I'll say here, I agree with you on those points, but you all don't focus on the actual substance, the meat of the story itself. This is an issue of focusing on aesthetics versus the substance of the story itself, the written story itself. And so I want to focus on the written story itself and say that the story is actually good because of those qualities, while both of you seem to a lot focus on the aesthetics of the quest itself. And if this is all so obvious, then why don't you or Taigo really get into the meat of this quest? Right?
When all you're getting is information overload in a monotone state, sure, you might be used to that from the public schooling system, but it would be cool if the information was presented in a more flashy way. You know what I mean? Like while things were happening, we would learn about the stories while something cool was happening, rather than just, I'm going to talk words at you while you listen to what I say. But, you know, maybe you're still in high school and you enjoy that type of teaching.
See, when he says pacing, he's meaning entertainment, right? That it keeps you engaged throughout the whole quest. That is not what I mean when I say pacing. When I'm talking about story pacing, I'm talking about the actual definition of what it means to be a well-paced story. The pacing of a story is the speed at which story beats unfold. So for me, the pacing is the graph that I bring up later. That's the pacing of the quest itself, are those story beats and how often they hit. What Tectone and Taigo are talking about with pacing seems to just be entertainment value, which again is fine. Like I said in the video, I agree with him on a lot of those points, but that's not what I'm talking about, right? So I think we should just be clear here that our definition of pacing is not the same. And if I was on the same level as him and agreed that pacing includes anything entertaining, then sure, the aesthetics would obviously matter in that realm. But that's not what I was talking about. What I was talking about was this actual pacing of the story beats themselves. And because of that, I think that the story hits those really well and fairly quick for this particular quest. And for a lot of other story quests, again, there are outliers. Kokomi is an outlier. Also, I graduated college and I'm making videos about Genshin Impact. Look, the pandemic happened.
I was saying this is a blanket statement for the majority of quests. Okay, so if you can just open your inner eye, okay, you can find that. But if you don't know where the repeated, like, I guess, what would the word be? Where does the main repeating come from Raiden Shogun's story quest? You would know that we would go see a ghost that died in the past, and then we had to fix it. Then we would go see a ghost that died in the past, and then we had to fix it. And then we would go see a ghost that died in the past, and then we had to fix it. That is where the repeating happened. Did you not see that? Because it happened like 3 times.
This is also kind of a weird point. I'm using A's quest to show what's good about the quest, just like Taigo and somewhat Tectone are using A's quest to show what's bad about the story quests, right? That's what I'm doing here. I'm using that quest to specifically explain why, like, how I think story quests work in this game. So I don't see how it's like irrelevant to bring that up. Also, I guess A Christmas Carol repeats information too much since it has 3 ghosts in it. You see how that doesn't make sense? The amount of ghosts in a story or the amount of people in a story shouldn't matter if they all serve a purpose. And as I say in the graph portion of the video, I do think that they all serve a purpose. I do think that they're all important for A's growth. That's my point. He says that they could have been combined into one, but again, kind of a weird point. I don't necessarily think that that's true. Again, we could look at the Christmas Carol example. Could you like combine all 3 of the ghosts into one? I guess, maybe, but that doesn't make the story worse or better if you do that. So to me, it's just kind of a weird point.
Berries and cream, berries and cream. I'm a gelato loves berries and cream.
I was buying into some of your points. I was enjoying your video. I can no longer trust your creative directive.
Like I said before, Taigo, and as we'll see with Tectone, basically just says that the dialogue is boring, repeats information, and looks visually dull most of the time.
Is that you would disagree with that? Now, I understand looking at Raiden Shogun's boobies might be interesting to you. And to me, true. But are you telling me that you disagree with that?
No, I don't disagree with that, but that's the point. That I agree with you all on the aesthetic arguments, right? But I don't agree with the substantial argument that the substance of the quest itself, the plot points, the characterization, the dialogue, that it itself is bad. That's my point. That's the point of my video. So yes, I can agree with you on the aesthetics, but I can disagree with you on the substance. Like, the whole graph that I make talks about the substance. It doesn't mention the aesthetics at all, because again, that's not what my focus is. Also, Raiden doesn't interest me. I'm a gay.
Let me ask you a question, Altred Maverick. Why did you decide to make this video in a highly edited, comedically timed, with lots of memes thrown into this video, rather than just a black screen and you talking in a monotone voice? Do you want to know why? Because pacing matters, and interesting things happening on the screen makes information easier to take in.
Again, he's using a different definition of pacing. Do I think that my video would have been as entertaining without all of the edits? No, of course not. That's why I highly edit my content. But it doesn't change the fact that the script itself would have still been well paced. See what I'm saying? The content of the actual script is what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about the quirks and the memes and the highly edited content. I'm talking about the script itself. How well cohesive is the script? How fast do the story beats go one after another? I think for a second quest, they go fairly well. And that was my point, that to just ignore that altogether and focus on aesthetics is the wrong way to look at pacing, because it's not the actual pacing of the story beats themselves. And that's why I use the graph later, again. I think the best way to explain story pacing is to just imagine that we novelized Genshin's story. Tectone, you enjoy anime and manga, but imagine that a manga was simply novelized. No images or panels. To me, that's how you examine the plot and the writing itself. Panel layout in manga is extremely important, as is the cinematography for an anime, but it's not the pacing of the written story. Again, the way to tell this is to look at a novelized form of a story and check the pacing there. If not, are all visual novels or novels in general poorly paced? Of course not. Again, I'd like to say that we have to look at the story itself to determine that. So we talked about how the amount of dialogue isn't what truly matters, it's what's in the dialogue, as well as the fact that the
That's true. Are we noticing a theme where like this dude is talking about proper pacing in a story, meanwhile he fully understands the concept of proper pacing in this video, yet is still defending static animations and cutscenes? It's insane.
Colors. The static animations in the cutscenes is not what I'm defending. Again, I'm not defending that here. I acknowledge that's not amazing. I acknowledge it. But what I'm saying is that we should focus on the substance of the story. You know, the thing that you say is so obvious, yet you keep moving back to the animations.
An ambition is a yearning for something material or a concrete outcome. It is finite in nature and will be replaced by a new ambition in due course. This is another thing, right? Why did we need to have an entire English history lesson? A dictionary definition for what an ambition is? Who doesn't know what an ambition is, bro?
This is how A speaks. This is how she's characterized, right? She speaks in this sort of like wordy, elegant way. That's like part of her character. She's a noble who really hasn't experienced modern day times, so she speaks kind of archaically. Like that's the point for her character. Also, she mentions the definition of ambition to juxtapose it with the definition of the dreams, which is her and Makoto's different definitions of eternity. That's the point for her including the definition. It's not to like explain to the player, like, oh yeah, you forgot what ambition means. Let me get a dictionary. It's basically her saying like, look, this is what I thought that it meant. This is what Makoto thought that it meant. That's the point, right? It's to juxtapose those two arguments. Again, this is probably the slowest part of the quest from a storytelling perspective, because it really is mostly Yai explaining stuff we should already know. A's pastoral is
true! Why are you telling me that you disagree? It sounds like you're just agreeing. Where is the disagree part? It's weird. Where are you disagreeing?
Everywhere! I disagree with you on the main points. The whole reason for this graph is to disagree on the fact that you can't just look at StoryQuest with just the aesthetics. You have to look at them for their substance. Like, that's a major point of disagreement, as we've seen. Just how we see that we disagree on what pacing really means. Like, what's wrong with the nuance? Like, you can disagree with me and agree with me at the same time. You do it throughout this video. You'll agree with what I say, and then you'll disagree with what I say, and vice versa here. Again, I can agree with a minor point that you make, like a minor conclusion that Paimon sucks, but then I can disagree with you on a major conclusion that because of Paimon being in the game, it means it's for children. So I can agree with you on some things and disagree with you on other things. Again, it's the nuance of argument. The internet doesn't really allow for this, and it's hard to really push this into a video, but I want to make this clear. This is about the nuance of the arguments. I agree and I disagree with you. That's the point.
I was with you. I was on board with you for a long time. I was buying into some of your points. I was enjoying your video. But when you expect me to take your decisions seriously and your points seriously, yet you're out there rocking that absolute joke of a mustache, bro, I can no longer trust your creative directive.
Ah! Fine. I'll do what you want. I'll be right back. Ugh. Okay, see? Better? Huh? You can see my hair still. Push that back.
You think that story quest could not have been better to significantly better? Do you honestly think that it could not have been better?
Yes, but so can 99% of stories in anything. I'm not sure what Tectone is trying to point out here.
No? Are you just saying all stories are bad?
Well, Tectone seems to have fallen in the logical corner that I say that Uwu was going to fall in if he said no. Plus, where does he get that I'm saying that all stories are bad? I'm saying that all stories can be improved on in some way, not that they're bad and need improvement. I'm saying that they can be improved on. When he asks Uwu the question, he says this.
Uwu Knuckle, you say you like the quest, but I want to ask you, in your heart of hearts, do you think that story quest could not have been better to significantly better?
He's saying better to significantly better. So he's allowing both options, right? Can all stories be improved upon to make them better? Yeah, at least a little bit, right? Imagine a story is 97% perfect. It can still be improved upon by 3%. That's the point. Now, I don't think that all stories can be significantly improved upon. Like, he mentions Lord of the Rings. I think that it's near perfect. I love Lord of the Rings. But do I think that it can't be improved on at all? Of course not. I'm sure you could do exactly what Tectone did earlier and go sentence by sentence and find one sentence in Lord of the Rings that can be improved upon, or some grammatical structure that doesn't work as well, or maybe some plot point that doesn't hit as hard in a particular paragraph.
Oh, are you a psychology major? Okay, man. Why are you making this like I'm trying to like back a viewer into a corner, into a lose-lose situation? Dude, this isn't about psychology. This isn't about mental manipulation, man. It's just talking about a story quest being better than what it is. Why are we making this about some psychology bullshit? Good. Are we making this about bullying? Dude, I backed him into a corner like he's a scared dog.
I'm also definitely not saying that you're bullying your chat, so I'm sorry if that's the way that it came off. What I meant by that is that he's logically cornered, that he has to say yes to this question, because if he says no, then he's saying that there's no way that Genshin stories can be improved at all. If you say yes, even if you think Genshin is 99% amazing, you would have to say yes because of that 1%. But if you say no, you're saying that it's already at 100%. And that's the issue, right? That's the logical cornering that I'm talking about. Wow, a psychology major would be awful. I graduated with political science with a minor in legal studies. That's so much better. I challenge you, Tectone. Show me the last 3 books that you read.
So I've read 70 chapters of One Punch Man, 150 chapters of Jujutsu
I'm obviously
Kaisen,
joking here, but
oh
my god!
Persona 4 and 5 are 2 of my favorite games of all time.
But that doesn't mean that the...
Let me ask you an honest question. This dude keeps on comparing Genshin Impact story to Persona 4 and Persona 5 story.
I don't compare Genshin's story to Persona's. Look, I love Persona, and I think that it's my favorite gaming series of all time, like for sure. And I even talk about it on my other channel. You want to check it out?
Sick plug! Let's go! Huge!
But I'm not saying that the stories are equivalent. That's not at all what I'm trying to say. Instead, I use the first example of Persona to say that there are games with mascot characters that aren't geared towards children. That's the reason why I even bring up Persona in that case, because it's a really easy example and I also love Persona. The second case is that I bring up games with a lot of dialogue, and Persona is also a game that has a ton of dialogue. And someone could easily just say they don't like the game because it has a lot of dialogue, it's got a lot of reading. That's what Taigo specifically says, is that Genshin's got a lot of reading, he doesn't like reading all that stuff. And that, again, fine. But I'm not saying that the stories are equivalent. Persona and Genshin are definitely in different leagues. I think that Persona, to me, on like a gaming landscape, it's kind of like Lord of the Rings. I think that at least Persona 4, to me, is like near perfection when it comes to a game and its writing. But again, clearly you love Persona. I don't have to convince you with that. But again, don't misinterpret me.
Don't twist my words.
Careful. Careful.
Be careful. Be careful.
Careful.
Take the next step. It's very simple. It's very, very, very simple. Everything can always be improved upon. No. Are you just saying all stories are bad? But Genshin's story is so unrefined that it can truly be polished to a severely heightened degree, with things like stop having Paimon repeating the same words that we already know. Stop having Paimon point out things that we can already understand. Let the main character talk. Let the main character emote. That way we can understand how they feel, because the main character is an important character. Stop spending so much time describing characters that we're never going to see again for the other 99% of the story, and focus more on the ones that we do have. Instead of having our characters interact with other characters that we're never going to see again, have our characters interact with the other characters like Bennett and interacting with Hu Tao, so that way we get a whole nice developed layer of how they interact between the two.
I think this shows how confused he is about my actual conclusions at this point. I agree with almost everything that he's saying here. There's not a huge disagreement that I have with him here. I'm glad that he brought this stuff up, specifically the point on having other characters interact with other main characters. That's my shit, and I absolutely love when gacha games do that, and I think Genshin absolutely needs to do that more, which it looks like they're going to be doing more, which is awesome. And I'm glad that he brought that up, because that really is a discussion about some of the substance of these quests. That it is nice to have interactions between characters that we already know, and it can actually bolster certain characters to know how they would interact with others. So that's a great point. He just doesn't make these points. in the original video. So one of his major points is that Paimon sucks. And yeah, I don't like Paimon. I can say his means. Again, most of these points that he brings up, the things that I'm now agreeing with, are not things that were in the original video. So it's a bit odd that he brings them up as if they were points made in his original video when like they weren't. They were not in his original video. Or I would have agreed with him. And then he would have been like, why are you agreeing with me?
You know what, dude? I feel like this video would have been so much better if he just left my name out of it. You know what I mean? I feel like this video was so good, but I feel like his viewpoints were actually pretty similar with mine, but he just wanted to put my name in the title just for the fucking sake of it. You know what I mean?
What? This whole portion of the video is about you. This portion wouldn't exist without the arguments that you made in your original video that I'm attempting to refute the main conclusions of. That's the point for this section. The eggy arguments. Did we forget? Again, I realize that this is the internet. There are people who absolutely super clout chase. There are people who do not look in a nuanced way at the argumentation by the person that they're responding to. But take me on my word here, I guess. That's not what I'm trying to do. And that's why throughout the video, I agree and disagree with him a lot, back and forth. I'll agree with a minor conclusion and then disagree with a major conclusion. The point of my video is to look at the story quest with a more nuanced look, but it looks like the point of this video now is to look at arguments with a more nuanced look. That things don't have to just be you're completely wrong or you're completely right. Just in the same way that things don't have to be that it's completely good or completely bad. And I think that we all acknowledge that, right?
Dude, I feel like the video was really good. Hey, credit to Altered Maverick. I feel like the video was very good, but unfortunately, I feel like a lot of his points were kind of crafted to fit the narrative of I was wrong. So each time he would ever say I agree, it would make him look like an idiot. And that's why I feel like this video should have just been presented as my thoughts on what makes a good story quest, or even just what makes a good story quest. It should have just been the actual standalone title.
So you have a problem when I agree with you, and you think that because I agree with you at points, that completely destroys any point that I disagree with you on. But now you're claiming that I crafted the video just to disagree with you? That's not the point. Help, please. Again, though, I'm not like that. I didn't craft the last video just to get W's or L's. I literally say that at the beginning of the video. That wasn't the point. My point of the last video is that we should look at story quests with more nuance. We should examine them for what's in the story themselves and not just the aesthetic values that they have, which I think is important. And that's why I said it, and that's why I disagreed with both of your original videos, because of that fact. That's why I did it, right? It wasn't to one-up you or anything. Same thing with Taigo. I think both of you are great, and I watch both of your guys' stuff, right? So it's not an issue about you or me trying to one-up you or anything else. I honestly think that Tectone, here, in this response, did a much better job at actually explaining the issues that he had in the original video, right? Because he actually does bring up substantive issues with Story Quest, more so here than he ever did in the previous video. Again, I disagree with him in the previous video, and I disagree with him a lot here. It's the point of this. But on some broader points, I agree with him. And again, I think that that's important. And I think the internet needs more of that, where people can agree and disagree, and we can explain where we agree and where we disagree. Again, that's how argumentation should work. It shouldn't just be, I disagree with this point, so that must mean that I disagree with every other point in this list. To me, that's just unreasonable and intellectually dishonest. If my original video and this video do anything, I hope it's that we look at stories and argumentation with a little more nuance. We give people a little more leeway than we normally would. And again, Tectone, thanks for responding. It's really cool, and I'm glad we can have this conversation in the community. It's actually really exciting, and not just for the clout, but that's pretty cool too. If you ever want me on where we can actually have a back and forth on stream or something, or in private, Discord, Twitter, whatever, that'd be cool too. Totally up for it. Again, also trying to make friends in this space. It's not exactly easy. But thank you so much for this conversation, and thank you for watching. If you responded to this on stream, then I hate you and you're the worst and your chat's a bunch of babies. Ah!